So I had a chance, this is 2 years ago, and I was invited to go to Greenland by the Prince of Denmark. And now I'm an English major, so I was pretty impressed. It's like, because when we read about the Prince of Denmark, he was quite something, Hamlet. And there's also Princess Victoria, the Crown Princess of Sweden, the Crown Prince of Norway, the Crown Prince of Denmark. And so we went to the northern part of Greenland, to the Nîmes Ice Research Station. And it was an extraordinary trip. We went on these C-130s that were seconded to the station by the Schenectady National Guard in New York. And there's these classic military cargo planes where you sit sideways, not back or forwards, and you have nets and ropes, and you pee into a 5-gallon plastic bucket. That's the bathroom. And we landed in a place where you're 500 kilometers away from the closest human artifact. And I'm talking about a candy bar wrapper. And you land where there is literally nothing, and there is no life there at all. And just the week before, a person who had been there for 10 years and who knew it cold was the go-to guy when you want to know about survival and how to be there, had basically gone out, underdressed, white out, did the thing you never do, which is not, instead of staying right where he was, he started to walk and walk further away and became a double amputee. So it's a very, this is summertime. Very, very strange environment. Minus 30 degrees. Scientists from all 14 different countries there for 90 days, and you got to get out. Just got to get the heck out of there. And what they're doing is drilling down in these ice caves. They're drilling these ice cores down to bedrock. And the bedrock in Greenland is the Eemian period. And the Eemian period is the last time on Earth where it was 450 parts per million, which is at the present rate of greenhouse gas emissions, we will be before 2050. And it's amazing. On one hand, you go down this thing, you see 6 stories down, the slippery ice, and these ice cores are coming up, and they use coconut milk as a lubricant. I have no idea why, but they don't use mineral oil, they use vegetable lubricant, and so it comes up blub, 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 this white, bubbly liquid coming from a mile down in the ice, and it's kind of like a B Hollywood movie, looking down to what else is going to come up from there. And they take these ice cores, which are about as tall as the floor is to the ceiling here, and then lay them out horizontally, and then you can run these anode and cathodes, these readouts, and you run them very slowly, and you get these extraordinary histographs of what was going on Earth at that time, and you say, okay, and they stop here, see this, look at the sulfur aerosols, this was a volcano, but this was southern hemispheric, and how do we know that? Because we work with our colleagues in the Arctic, and they also had the same thing, 1328, something happened down south, in terms of volcanic activity and pollen and the composition of the atmosphere. And what we know at that time, when they got down to 8,000 feet and sort of the Eemian period, is that there was hippopotami lounging in the swamps of the Thames River. The ocean was 13 to 20 feet higher. Giraffes and lions and zebras were gallivanting around Germany. Alligators were munching in Alaska. I mean, this was a very different period. And I'm just saying is and what they're saying is, well, that was the last time it was 450 ppm. Except the difference is that during the Eemian period, it didn't rise that fast. It didn't go to that level as quickly. So again, we have unknowns here in terms of climate change. Now, these forces, these are all have come about because of us. So it's not like I'm not pointing fingers here. If I am, I'm pointing at myself. And this is what we've done. But I also think, to Mark's introduction, that we consistently underestimate the gravity and the severity of the situation that we face. I also think, and why I wrote Blessed Unrest, that we consistently underestimate ourselves and underestimate humanity. And we do so because for some reason it doesn't seem to be an interesting story for the media. What's interesting is scandal and corruption and false and grace and God knows what else. And that seems to be that dominates, you know, what we hear about ourselves. But underneath all that, something very different is happening. The reason I wrote Blessed Unrest was the same reason I write any book, which is to learn. Not because I know, but to learn, to ask a question. And when I wrote Natural Capitalism with Amory Lovins, my question was, what happens to a society, to an economy, to a civilization when the limiting factor to human prosperity and development is natural capital? Forest, fiber, water, topsoil, fisheries, all the things that provide and sustain life, And when the limiting factor from the industrial age up until recently was human-made capital, and schools and roads and infrastructure and hospitals, those are the limiting factors to human well-being. But now we are moving into another age in which the limiting factor is natural capital. So what happens? What do we do? And the thing about human beings is, they have always adjusted, adapted, and changed to focus on what the limiting factor is. And it really goes back to sustainability itself, which is that sustainability is hardwired. It's innate. It's not something that is really conceptual for us. And I understand there's a tiger snake out here, not here, but right outside. And if I asked you to go pick it up, you won't. And that's because you're interested in your sustainability. That's what I'm talking about. With sustainability is what we do on an individual level, which is we always take that action that we think furthers our life and our survival and our viability. This is common sense. But what we have is a situation where our individual actions do not collectively support the sustainability of us as individuals or as a whole. And so there is the tension. The tension really isn't in the concept. The tension is in the fact that collectively certain people, sometimes many, and to a certain extent all of us in one way or another, benefit from degradation. We benefit from an economy that tells us it's cheaper to destroy the earth in real time. That's because that's what the economic signals are, right? And so as we have become aware of that, the question is, how do we change that? How do we change that in such a way that we actually not go backwards, because we're not going to do that, there's too many of us. How do we do that in such a way that we actually improve the quality of life for everyone here? So sustainability is not a fix, it's not an add-on, it's not a tweak, It's really about the reimagination of what it means to be a human being in relationship to living systems. And at the very core of that is actually perception, seeing, being. It's not doing, it's being. And what I mean by that is that the only difference between people, say, who talk about sustainability and practice it, and perhaps those who do not yet, is that they are looking at the world as a system. They're thinking systemically. And this is not so hard to do because children are born that way. This is, again, innate. When you who are parents or siblings, certainly remember the young child, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, and at some point he or she then utters their first word, and it's just, it's like a miracle every time it happens. And it is, because that child has been hearing language, and the language is all over the map, and it's melodic and staccato, and sometimes it's baby talk, and most of the time it's not. And the child, although not able to express themselves, is actually looking at facial characteristics and gestures and what happens, the sound. All these things are going into the child and registering big time. And out of that comes this first utterance, you know, mama, like big success, you know, or papa, or ball, or cat, or whatever it is, and pretty soon they're stringing words together, and then there's sentences and so on. Well, the child wouldn't be able to do this unless they were perceiving this sound. Listen to my sound. This is a flow of unbroken sound. How could you possibly learn language from unbroken streams of sound? But they do. They do. And so this ability is innate. Right? And it takes about 12 to 16 years and $300,000 to teach children not to think this way, right? And to teach them that everything is separate, and that you need to specialize, and it's silos, and that this doesn't have anything to do with that, and that the world is actually disconnected, surprise, surprise, you know. You didn't get that? Well, you know, you get an F, and we'll work with you on that one. I mean, because if you look at, like, in my country, like 40 years ago, we put a man and an electric car on the moon. Pretty good, you know, when you think about it. And we still don't have electric cars in Los Angeles, you know. So you have to ask yourself, what is the difference? Because it's the same people. And so therefore, it's really about NASA was thinking systemically. And, you know, Los Angeles, until recently, it's really changed, was not, you know. So when you think of sustainability, it's really about, you know, making these connections, but it's deeper than that. And the real disease, I think, in this world, I'm not talking about medical diseases, but of our being, is this idea that the duality between modernity and nature, that somehow that nature is outside the window. That's nature, and we are people, and citizens of Canning or whatever, you know, that somehow, that they're two different things. And when you really look at all indigenous cultures, they never made that distinction. It didn't even occur to them. They didn't even know that it is a distinction. And they were right. We are nature. Everything we do is nature. And that is more of a realization. It's not a concept. And that realization is best had, frankly, outdoors. But it doesn't matter how and when it happens. You know? And that change is astonishing in terms of then how you literally see the world, because you're seeing a very, very different world. And so this movement that we talk about, this unnamed movement that combines indigeneity and social justice and the environment, really at its heart is reweaving, trying to, in a sense, put these back together. Because in indigenous cultures, the idea of social justice and environment being, again, distinct or separate is incomprehensible. Because what you do to the land, you do to its people. And what you do to people is going to affect the land. I mean, this is like obvious, and we've seen it historically.